things like socially, when it comes to foreign policy, there are things that I really do agree with libertarians on. But when it comes to macro and microeconomics, they really have this mindset of, well, if you can't figure it out, then I guess you just have to die. And it's like, I don't know how that gets instilled in somebody's mind. I will say that one thing that never gets pointed out enough regarding Rand Paul is he comes from immense privilege. It's not like he came into a situation where I totally made it myself and I just want the American people to do the same as I have. No, Ron Paul is your father. You come from massive wealth. So I really,
can he answer the question? How are we, explain why me asking you how we're going to finance a deficit is really ridiculous. That's just, this is why we can't have nice things, because people ask questions that are so stupid.
Well, it really is stupid. And Stephanie, there's this great, it's a platform, and we're actually modeling a debate show that we're going to be doing in the future after it. And it's called Pair, P-A-I-R, Paragraph. And what they do is they pick two people in advance to kind of work out their debate, in writing. And they establish the kind of baseline for what is true and what is false and so forth. And it's pretty nice setup, because it's not trolling. It's actually trying to address the actual issues that are raised. And in the video that you're talking about, the reason why this stuff gets so problematic is because we have been led to believe that the big bad United States, this country that is so badass, it can literally take its army around the world, do whatever it wants to do, but somehow or another, this mega military might falls prey to the old Jewish guy at the Federal Reserve. I mean, somehow or another, they just can't defeat and I'm like, guys, listen, if you just go ahead and bribe the butler, you can go ahead and spike the Rothschild's Earl Grey. You could easily put a bar of soap in the tub, and when he slips and falls, hey, end of the issues, right? That's the Rothschilds, right? This is the insanity that comes from it. But worse, more mainstream thinkers even start thinking that the United States somehow or another has to borrow money from banks to finance its spending, because they don't realize that U.S. dollars are a law. They're a patent. It's a unit of measure that the country created. And every country, Japan created the British, UK, pound sterling. You've got the Australian dollar, on and on and on. Each of these countries did the same thing. They created their own unit of account. And you have a central bank that facilitates payments between other, banks. That it's an interbanking system. Okay. And so when they say the United States has to finance its deficits, that means you imagine Tiny Tim rushing up. Oh, dear sir. Oh, sir, please, sir. Will you please allow us to borrow $20 trillion, $30 trillion? The bank goes, well, Sonny, you've been doing this for over 200 years and you're up to 30 trillion and still haven't paid it back. Why would I lend you another penny? It's ridiculous. We don't borrow money. It's just an accounting identity that when we spend money, we put a reserve in the liability section, and the asset is the spent money to us. And if you look at it from the government side, it's like looking in a mirror. You look at it, it looks like it's debt to the government, but you look at us, it's our private savings. So when they say finance deficits, it's like, you really don't get this, do you? You really are the slow kid that needs the extra remedial 099 training to get to even baseline. And that's part of the problem with talking with libertarians. It's part of the problem that Stephanie Kelton has. It's not so much that they're stupid, it's that they're starting from a fundamentally flawed point. It's like building a house, the foundation of your house in quicksand, and wondering why it's tilted. And that to me is the fundamental message that drives me crazy, that I'm trying desperately to get people to understand that this is not some inconsequential thing. This literally is the starting point before you even have the conversation. You got to have that base. And the base is the United States spends money into existence and it taxes money out of existence. It doesn't finance its deficits, doesn't do any of that stuff. So that's
the key. the key more than anything else is that it taxes money out of existence. So everybody's like, oh, why are you printing all this money? It's like, because certain money gets taken out. Again, and I have a friend who's very libertarian, and he has this idea of the deficit is this, and we're going to completely devalue the dollar. It's like, again,
blah, 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 inflation, blah, blah, blah.
And inflation is a serious problem. But Steve, please tell the American people,
that's not
why
connected.
Do we have such an inflation problem right now?
So there's a couple things at play. And this is super important because as much as it would be nice to create a bumper sticker that says something like, thanks, Brandon, or something like that, which is highly effective, by the way. All these ads against Biden, they make it look like Biden did this. And you should know by now, I am not a Biden fan. So any defense of him is happenstance. Okay. It's not intentional. Okay. But the reality is that ultimately we have a couple things at play. We have the Saudi Arabia gang with an automatic little thing that clicks up the price of gas, and they'll keep raising that price until the economy busts. They have no incentive not to, and they're going to do it. Let's say that that's one aspect of inflation. The other aspect of inflation is that because during the pandemic, we had a lot of people that weren't working, not working in the kind of production fields that we needed. Supply chains around the world were broken completely. And so trying to put gas, it's like an old tractor sitting in your yard and you're trying to get it to turn over, and you got your son up there, your daughter up there. You're like, give it the old crank there. You're like cleaning it out. It's like, blah, 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 blah. That's what happens when the economy goes and shut down like that. And we still haven't caught up. And in my other life, in my real professional life, I work in IT. And so talking with Cisco representatives and stuff, they're saying, hey, I know this sounds crazy. COVID's supposedly over. But the fact is that we have a year to wait to get those pieces of equipment. I'm like, a year? Because the semiconductors are still a shortage. There's still a shortage on semiconductors. So supply chains are another reason why there is inflation. But there's a third, more nefarious reason, and this is probably the most nefarious reason. There was a great article in The Guardian a couple weeks back that showed that U.S. corporations in general that are passing on, quote unquote, the cost of inflation to consumers are sitting there with 333% profit over this period of time, aka Amazon, 900% the Steel Corporation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And groceries up 200% profits. This is not happenstance. What happens is that because we have pathetically, and I'm just going to be ruthless with this critique here, we have pathetically accepted the Milton Friedman school of quantity theory of money. Okay, which has long been debunked. And the same thing, they're trying to do the Volcker method by jacking interest rates up to stave off inflation. All that will do is literally kill the economy. But the point is, going back to Milty, Uncle Milton for a minute, his belief that the more money you put into the economy, the more inflation will come. Well, the reality is that what we have is a country, a government, that does not do its job in terms of audit, in terms of regulatory environment, et cetera. And you saw this with the great crash in 08 and 09, where we didn't have a quality SEC type of regulation over Wall Street. And we allowed them to do very, very criminal behavior with elite control fraud. And ultimately, what ends up happening? What ends up happening is you have a total collapse of the economy. What's happening now is that people, these businesses know that we believe that when the government spends money on the people, that inflation's coming. We believe it. We see it in our churches, our cartoons, our comic books. Every sitcom, every series we binge watch has these references to this quantity theory of money. Reality is that they're literally saying, hey, we can mark prices up. There's literal boardrooms that are a public document. They're not even hiding it. They're like, hey, the conditions are such that we can jack prices up, and they are. So a lot of this is a feckless, incompetent regulatory environment. A lot of this is also our own ignorance of what causes inflation. Part of it is the steady rising in gas prices because let's just say we're consuming the same amount of gas we've always consumed. However, we've taken one major player, although it was only 3 to 6% of our internal adoption, but take Russia out of the equation right now. And so what ends up happening? You got to get it from somewhere. The United States has no energy policy. We're a free market economy. So all the people in the United States that manufacture and sell gas are exporting it. There's nothing national, so you can't do that. You got to keep it here. So they're selling it. So that leaves us with a certain percentage of gas that has to be picked up somewhere. The only people that have the capacity to meet that additional demand left off by the Russians are the Saudis. And so what are they doing? They're saying, we got you. We got you by the short hairs. We're going to raise it up. This should be our rallying cry for a Green New Deal, for windmills, for freaking solar panels, and for solar highways, you name it. But instead, we're just saying, thanks, Brandon. And we're not missing the point of it all.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.